The Seoul sky unleashes its fury in sheets of cold rain that cut through the night like blades of glass. On the 47th floor terrace of Han Energy and Infrastructure, Min Jae-han stands motionless in his drenched Armani suit, arms outstretched to welcome every brutal drop. Lightning splits the darkness, illuminating his face, eyes closed, jaw set, completely surrendering to the storm that mirrors the emptiness he's carried for 5 endless years. His medication sits untouched on the marble table behind him, the pills that promise sleep but deliver only chemical numbness. Tonight, he needs to feel something real, even if it's just the sting of rain against skin that forgot how to register warmth. You'll drown standing up out there. The voice cuts through the storm's roar with unexpected gentleness. A black woman emerges from the terrace doors, elegant even in the downpour, carrying a vibrant yellow umbrella like a small portable sun. She doesn't ask permission, simply opens it over both of them, creating an intimate island of shelter in the chaos. "I don't need protection," Min Jae murmurs in English, but he doesn't step away. "I know," Solange Harrington replies calmly, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who's spent years navigating storms both literal and metaphorical. "But sometimes we need the things we don't think we need." The silence that follows isn't uncomfortable. For the first time in years, Min Jae doesn't feel the crushing weight of his own thoughts. Under her umbrella, the world has color again. When she closes it, and the rain stops as if obeying some invisible command, he stares at her with something approaching wonder. The storm clouds part, revealing stars he forgot existed. "Who are you?" he whispers. "Someone who makes weather patterns her business," she says with a smile that could power the entire city. "I'm here about your Climate Square project." But Min Jae is beginning to suspect she's here for something much more dangerous than urban planning. Have you ever felt your heart stop in the rain, only to discover it was learning how to beat again? Subscribe for more stories about love that changes everything, because some storms are meant to heal rather than destroy. The next morning finds Min Jae in his glass-walled office, staring at the proposal that arrived overnight like an answer to prayers he never knew he'd been praying. "Climate-responsive urban light installation," reads the header in elegant font, submitted by Solange Harrington, public art curator and urban design consultant. Her photograph paperclipped to the application shows the same woman from the terrace, but in daylight she looks even more formidable. Natural curls framed around intelligent eyes, wearing confidence like armor, holding what appears to be the same yellow umbrella. Secretary Park enters with his morning coffee, her practiced efficiency masking concern that's grown deeper over the 5 years since his breakdown began. "Sajangnim, the design committee is ready for your review of the Climate Square submissions." "Cancel the committee," Min Jae says without looking up from Solange's proposal. "I want to meet with this consultant personally." Park's eyebrows rise slightly. In 5 years, he's never shown personal interest in any project, treating every decision with the mechanical precision of a man going through motions. "Shall I schedule a formal presentation?" "No. Arrange a site visit. Today." "Today, sir?" The storm damage needs immediate assessment anyway. Min Jae finally looks up, and Park sees something in his expression she hasn't witnessed since before Jinho's death. Actual engagement. "And Park C, have maintenance check the terrace security cameras from last night." "Is there a problem, Sajangnim?" "No," he says, touching the business card Solange left behind. Quite the opposite. 2 hours later, Min Jae stands in Gwanghwamun Square as Seoul's morning rush flows around him like a river of ambition. The proposed site for the climate installation stretches before him, currently just an empty plaza where tourists take photos and office workers eat lunch, but Solange's vision transforms it into something revolutionary. She arrives precisely on time, trading her elegant umbrella for a professional tablet and wearing the kind of practical beauty that makes his chest tighten with unexpected recognition. Not attraction exactly, though that's certainly present, but the deeper recognition of meeting someone who sees the world in colors he'd forgotten existed. Mr. Han, she extends her hand with the directness he's learning to expect from her. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. The pleasure is mine, Ms. Harrington. Her handshake is firm, warm, completely present in the moment. I have to admit, your proposal intrigued me. Only intrigued? She tilts her head with playful challenge. I was hoping for fascinated, maybe even inspired. Despite himself, Min-jae almost smiles. When was the last time someone challenged him with such casual confidence? Show me what you see here. Solange activates her tablet, and suddenly the empty plaza transforms into a three-dimensional hologram of light and motion. Sensors buried in the pavement respond to foot traffic, creating ripples of illumination that follow pedestrians like aurora, following magnetic fields. Weather stations trigger different colors and intensities. Warm golden pulses during sunny days, cool blue waves during rain, dramatic whites and silvers during storms. The installation doesn't just respond to climate, she explains, her voice taking on the passionate intensity of an artist describing her masterpiece. It creates climate, psychological climate, emotional weather patterns. Meaning when you walk through here this morning, feeling whatever you were feeling, the lights would have read your biometric data, heart rate, skin temperature, stress indicators, and responded with colors designed to either enhance or counterbalance your emotional state. Min-jae stares at the holographic display, watching virtual figures walk through cascades of responsive light. That's invasive. That's interactive. There's a difference. Solange deactivates the display and looks at him directly. The question is whether Seoul is ready for public art that actually serves the public, rather than just decorating it. And you think I am? I think, she says carefully, you're someone who understands what it means to need light in dark places. The words hit him like a physical touch. She knows. Somehow, this woman who met him for 5 minutes during a storm knows about the sleepless nights, the medication, the 5 years of going through motions while feeling nothing. Ms. Harrington, he says quietly, I think we should discuss your proposal in more detail. I'd like that very much. But as they walk toward his company car, neither notices the photographer across the square capturing images of Seoul's most eligible CEO in animated conversation with an unknown black woman, or the fact that those photos will be in tomorrow's gossip columns with captions speculating about secret romances and foreign influences. The game has started, though neither player yet understands the rules. The meeting that was supposed to last 1 hour stretches into 4. Min-jae's conference room fills with sketches, technical specifications, and the kind of animated discussion that his staff hasn't witnessed since before the company's darkest period. Solange challenges every assumption, questions every compromise, and somehow makes him remember why he used to love building things that mattered. The installation has to be self-sustaining, she insists, marking calculations on his whiteboard with the confidence of someone who's spent years making the impossible practical. Solar collection during the day, kinetic energy from foot traffic, even atmospheric moisture gathering. If we're creating something about climate responsiveness, it should be climate independent. The engineering costs alone would triple the budget. The engineering innovations would revolutionize urban art installations worldwide. Her eyes light up with the fervor of someone who sees possibilities instead of obstacles. Imagine if every major city had technology that could read and respond to collective emotional climate. Imagine public spaces that actually served public mental health. Min-jae finds himself leaning forward, engaged in a way that feels foreign, but intoxicating. You're talking about emotional architecture. I'm talking about cities that care about their citizens instead of just containing them. The phrase resonates in his chest like a struck bell. Cities that care. When was the last time he'd considered that Han energy and infrastructure might be responsible for more than profit margins and structural integrity? His phone buzzes with the 5th call from Secretary Park in the last hour. The board meeting he's missing, the merger discussions being postponed, the carefully orchestrated schedule falling apart while he sits in a conference room discussing art with a woman who makes him forget why he used to think schedules mattered more than possibilities. "I should let you get back to your day," Solange says, noting his distraction. "You've got empire building to oversee." "Actually," Min-jae hears himself saying, "would you like to continue this conversation over dinner?" The invitation surprises them both. In 5 years, he hasn't extended a social invitation to anyone, male or female, colleague or stranger. But something about her makes him want to abandon the careful isolation he's maintained since Jin-ho's death. "I appreciate the offer," Solange says carefully, "but I make it a policy not to mix business with pleasure. Especially when the business involves this much money, and the pleasure involves this much." She gestures between them. "Whatever this is. What if the business was concluded first?" "Meaning?" "Meaning I approve your proposal. Full budget, complete creative control, 6-month timeline." The words come out before he can calculate their implications. "The contract goes to legal tomorrow." Solange stares at him. "Just like that?" "Just like that, Mr. Han. You haven't seen cost projections, construction timelines, or safety assessments. You haven't consulted with your board or your engineering team. You're approving a multi-million-dollar project based on 4 hours of conversation. I'm approving a multi-million-dollar project based on 4 hours of remembering what it feels like to believe in something." The admission hangs between them, more intimate than any dinner invitation. They're standing close enough that he can see flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough that her perfume mingles with the rain scent that still clings to his jacket from last night. "In that case," she says softly, "dinner sounds wonderful. But somewhere public, somewhere appropriate for business associates celebrating a successful negotiation. I know just the place." 3 hours later, they sit in a 24-hour cafe in Hongdae, surrounded by university students and insomniacs, sharing coffee that tastes like possibilities and conversation that feels like coming home. The choice of venue was deliberate on both their parts, public enough to maintain professional distance, intimate enough to allow real connection. "Tell me about the insomnia," Solange says gently, noting the way his eyes move constantly around the room, the slight tremor in his hands, the careful way he measures each sip of coffee. "How did you know?" "The same way you know about the 3 failed relationships I've had with men who thought they were saving me." She meets his surprised look with a slight smile. "We recognize each other, don't we? People who've learned to function while carrying weight that no one else can see." Min-jae sets down his cup carefully. 5 years. Since my brother died. The medication helps sometimes, but mostly I just exist. Through the days, through the nights, through the endless meetings and decisions and responsibilities. What happened to him? Car accident. Or that's what the official report said. The words come slowly, painfully, like splinters working their way to the surface. Jin-ho was everything I'm not. Warm, spontaneous, genuinely happy. He loved music, loved people, loved life. And one night he was driving too fast on a mountain road and... You blame yourself. It's not a question, and Min-jae doesn't treat it as one. I was supposed to meet him that night. Work emergency came up, I canceled. If I'd been there, you'd both be dead, or you'd still be carrying the same guilt with additional survivor's syndrome. Solange's voice carries the authority of someone who's navigated her own landscape of loss. Grief isn't logical, Mr. Han. It doesn't respond to should-haves or what-ifs. Jin-ho would have loved your installation. He always said Seoul needed more light. Then we'll make sure it's bright enough to honor his memory. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the city's night people navigate their own complicated relationships with darkness and illumination. Students cramming for exams, shift workers grabbing coffee between jobs, lovers holding hands across small tables, insomniacs like themselves seeking company in the small hours when loneliness feels most acute. Why public art? Min-jae asks. You could design private installations for collectors, make more money with less bureaucracy. Because private beauty is selfish beauty. Solange traces patterns on the table with her fingertip, unconsciously creating the same geometric designs that feature in her light installation. I grew up in Detroit, watching my neighborhood decay while wealthy suburbs got newer, prettier, safer. I learned early that beauty shouldn't be a luxury good. Everyone deserves to live in spaces that lift their spirits. Even corporate executives with insomnia and emotional numbness. Especially them. You're the ones making decisions about what gets built and where. If we can remind you that beauty matters, that emotional architecture matters, that cities should nurture their citizens, maybe we change everything. The truth of it hits him like revelation. She isn't just creating art for soul, she's attempting to heal the healers, to remind the city's decision makers of their responsibility to human souls instead of just human bodies. Ms. Harrington? Solange. I think we're past formalities. Solange, when was the last time you felt hope about a project? Real hope, not just professional optimism? She considers the question seriously. 3 years ago, a community center in Philadelphia, designed to bring together families from 6 different cultural backgrounds. The opening day, I watched a 90-year-old Korean War veteran teaching origami to a 7-year-old Somali refugee, both of them laughing at their shared language of folded paper. What happened to that hope? The city cut funding 6 months later. Budget crisis. The community center is now a parking lot. Her voice carries old pain, carefully controlled. That's when I learned that hope needs to be backed by people with enough power to protect it. Min-jae reaches across the table and covers her hand with his. The first intentional physical contact between them. Simple and electric and somehow inevitable. What if I told you that this project will be protected? That Han Energy and Infrastructure has enough resources to make your vision permanent, influential, replicated in other cities? I'd say that sounds like a promise you might not be able to keep. And I'd say you haven't met my level of stubborn determination yet. They're interrupted by his phone buzzing with an urgent message from Secretary Park. Sir, there are photos of you and the American consultant. They'll be in tomorrow's papers. We need to discuss damage control immediately. Min-jae reads the message twice, feeling the familiar weight of public scrutiny settling on his shoulders. But for the first time in years, he doesn't feel the crushing anxiety of exposure. Instead, he feels something almost like defiance. Problem? Solange asks, noting his expression. The price of being a public figure in Seoul. Privacy is a luxury I can't afford. Are you worried about your reputation being connected to mine? The question carries layers of implication. Professional concerns mixing with personal ones. The reality of their racial difference in a still conservative society. The potential scandal of Seoul's most eligible bachelor being photographed with an unknown foreign woman. I'm worried about your reputation being connected to mine, he says honestly. I'm not an easy person to know, Solange. My family comes with complications, my position comes with enemies, and my personal demons come with medication and sleepless nights and 5 years of emotional unavailability. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to be honest about what you'd be getting into. Solange finishes her coffee and stands, gathering her coat with the graceful efficiency he's beginning to associate with her every movement. Mr. Han, Min-jae, I appreciate the honesty. But I've been taking care of myself in complicated situations for 44 years. I can handle whatever Seoul's gossip columnists think about me having coffee with my newest client. And what if it becomes more than coffee? The question slips out before he can stop it. Too direct, too revealing, too hopeful for a man who's spent years cultivating emotional distance. Solange pauses in putting on her coat, looking at him with an expression he can't quite read. Then I guess we'll find out if some storms are worth dancing in. She leaves him sitting in the 24-hour cafe with an empty coffee cup and the dangerous beginning of something that feels suspiciously like possibility. Outside, Seoul prepares for dawn, unaware that its most emotionally unavailable executive has just rediscovered what it means to want something more than mere survival. But in a black sedan parked across the street, someone with a telephoto lens captures images of Min Jae's face in the moment after Solange's departure, the face of a man who's just remembered how to hope. 2 weeks later, the construction site buzzes with activity that feels more like art installation than corporate project. Solange has transformed the empty plaza into a laboratory of light and technology, surrounded by equipment that looks like it belongs in a science fiction film rather than downtown Seoul. Min Jae arrives at dawn, drawn by the same insomnia that's plagued him for years, but now carrying anticipation instead of dread. He's made this early morning visit a habit, watching the installation take shape while the city wakes around them. "You're early again," Solange says without turning around, somehow sensing his presence while she calibrates sensors with the focused intensity of a surgeon. "So are you. I don't sleep much when I'm close to breakthrough." She straightens, wiping her hands on work clothes that somehow manage to look elegant, even covered in construction dust. Besides, this is the best time to test ambient light response. Dawn has the most complex color spectrum of the day. Min Jae moves closer to examine the nearly completed installation. What looked like simple geometric patterns in the holographic display has become something organic and alive. Thousands of fiber optic points embedded in the plaza's surface, creating constellations that pulse and breathe with their own mysterious rhythm. "It's beautiful," he says, and means it in ways that go beyond aesthetic appreciation. "It's almost ready. Want to see the preview?" Solange activates a tablet, and the plaza transforms. Light flows beneath their feet like luminous water, responding to their movements with ripples of gold and blue and silver. When Min Jae steps forward, the colors warm to amber and rose. When Solange joins him, the palette shifts to deeper hues, midnight blue and forest green and the kind of purple that only exists at the edge of storms. "It's reading our biometric data," she explains, but her voice carries wonder despite her technical knowledge. Heart rate, skin temperature, electromagnetic field variations. It knows we're standing close together. It knows... What does it know? It knows you're not as emotionally unavailable as you pretend to be. The lights beneath them pulse with warm gold, as if the installation itself is confirming her assessment. Min Jae looks down at the responsive surface, then up at Solange's face illuminated by the glow of her own creation. "And what about you? What is it reading from you?" "Attraction, curiosity, hope, and a fair amount of terror." "Terror of what?" "Of how much I'm starting to care about this project, about this city, about..." She doesn't finish the sentence, but the lights beneath them flare with coral pink, the color of acknowledgement and possibility. They're interrupted by the arrival of Secretary Park, who approaches with the careful expression of someone delivering potentially explosive news. "Sejongnim, I need to speak with you privately." Min Jae reluctantly steps away from the installation, immediately missing the warmth of the responsive lights and Solange's proximity. "What is it?" Park shows him a tablet displaying the morning's business news. The headline reads, "Han Energy CEO's Mystery Romance, Foreign Influence or Corporate Strategy." Below it, photos of him and Solange at the cafe, at the plaza, entering and leaving his building. "The board is asking questions," Park says quietly. "Chairman Han has requested a meeting this afternoon. And there have been inquiries about Ms. Harrington's background, her previous clients, her reasons for being in Seoul." Min Jae feels the familiar tightening in his chest, the return of anxiety he'd almost forgotten in the past weeks of working with Solange. The installation project has given him something to focus on besides his own empty numbness. But now the outside world is intruding with its demands for explanation and justification. What kind of inquiries? The thorough kind. Immigration records, professional history, financial background. Someone is building a comprehensive file. Min-jae looks back at Solange, who's pretending not to listen while making minute adjustments to sensor arrays. She's created something beautiful and revolutionary, something that could transform how Seoul thinks about public space and community connection. And now she's about to become collateral damage in the chess game of corporate politics and family expectations. Schedule the board meeting, he says quietly. And Parksy? Make sure Ms. Harrington has everything she needs to complete the installation. This project moves forward regardless of external concerns. Sir, if the board votes to cancel the project, the board doesn't vote on projects I personally approve. That's the point of being CEO. But as Park walks away, Min-jae knows the situation is more complicated than executive authority. In Korea's interconnected business culture, family expectations and social appropriateness carry weight that can override individual decisions. His father didn't build Han Energy and infrastructure to watch his son make headlines about foreign romances and questionable artistic investments. Problems? Solange asks when he returns to the installation site. Nothing we can't handle. She gives him a look that suggests she's not buying the casual dismissal. Min-jae, I've been working in public art long enough to recognize political pressure. If this project is causing you difficulties, this project is the best thing that's happened to me in 5 years. The admission surprises them both with its directness. Standing in the early morning light, surrounded by the glowing constellation of her creation, Min-jae realizes he's spoken a truth that goes far beyond professional appreciation. Even with the media attention, the questions about your judgment, your fitness to lead a major corporation, especially because of those questions, he moves closer to her, close enough that the installation responds with warm pulses of light around their feet. For 5 years, I've made decisions based on what was safe, predictable, profitable. I've avoided anything that might generate controversy or require me to feel something real. This project, working with you, it's the first time I've chosen something because it mattered instead of because it was easy. And if your board disagrees, then I'll remind them that Han Energy and infrastructure is about building things that last, and beauty lasts longer than profit. Solange searches his face, looking for signs of doubt or calculation. Instead, she sees something that makes her step closer, close enough that their hands brush, and the installation flares with brilliant gold. You're really willing to fight for this? I'm really willing to fight for a lot of things I thought I'd forgotten how to care about. The moment stretches between them, loaded with possibilities and promises neither is quite ready to voice. Around them, Seoul wakes up with its usual cacophony of traffic and construction and human ambition. But in their small circle of responsive light, time feels suspended, private, sacred. Solange's phone buzzes with a message from Maya, her assistant. News alert. Korean business blog speculating about foreign artistic influence on major Seoul construction project. They're digging into your Detroit work, the Philadelphia project, everything. Should I be worried? The message breaks the spell of the moment. Solange reads it twice, feeling the familiar weight of being scrutinized, evaluated, reduced to questions about her credentials and intentions. They're investigating my background, she says quietly. Professional history, previous projects, probably looking for anything that could be used to discredit the installation. Let them look. Your work speaks for itself. Does it? Or does it speak for foreign influence and questionable artistic judgment? Her voice carries the accumulated weariness of years spent proving herself in spaces where she wasn't initially welcomed. I've been through this before, Min-jae. The first question is always whether I'm qualified. The second question is always whether I belong. You belong here, in Seoul, in this project, in... He stops, unwilling to complete the thought that would make their relationship explicitly personal rather than professional. In your life? Yes. The simple admission hangs in the air like a bridge across impossible distance. They're not touching, but the space between them feels electric with possibility and danger, and the kind of connection that changes everything it touches. Min-jae, Solange says carefully, I need you to understand something. I've spent my career building things that matter, creating beauty that serves communities instead of just decorating them. But I've also learned that some projects come with costs I'm not willing to pay. What kind of costs? The cost of being reduced to someone's exotic fascination. The cost of having my work evaluated based on who I'm sleeping with instead of what I'm creating. The cost of becoming a symbol instead of remaining a person. Her honesty cuts through him like cold wind, forcing him to confront the implications of his growing feelings. Is he drawn to her because of her talent and intelligence and the way she makes him remember how to feel? Or is there some element of fascination with difference, some unconscious exoticism that reduces her to a novelty in his carefully ordered world? I don't know how to promise that won't happen, he says finally. Korean society, my family, the business world I operate in, they're not always kind to things that challenge expectations. But I can promise that it's not how I see you. How do you see me? Min-jae looks at her standing in the morning light, surrounded by the installation she's created. Her face serious and beautiful and completely present in this moment of truth between them. I see the first person in 5 years who's made me want to be fully awake. The installation around them pulses with warm gold and rose, as if responding to the emotional honesty crackling between them. Somewhere in the distance, Seoul continues its endless dance of ambition and survival. But in their small sanctuary of responsive light, two people are discovering that some connections transcend cultural boundaries and social expectations, and the careful distances we maintain to protect ourselves from disappointment. The question is whether they're brave enough to find out where those connections might lead. The board meeting takes place in Han Energy and Infrastructure's marble and glass conference room, 47 floors above Seoul's business district. Min-jae sits at the head of the polished table, facing 12 men in identical dark suits and expressions of carefully controlled concern. Chairman Han Young-wook, Min-jae's father, presides with the authority of someone who built an empire through calculated risks and strategic partnerships. At 74, he remains sharp, elegant, and absolutely unforgiving of decisions that threaten the family legacy. The climate installation project, Chairman Han begins without preamble, has generated significant media attention, some of it favorable, much of it speculative. The installation is ahead of schedule and under budget, Min-jae replies evenly. Ms. Harrington's work exceeds every technical specification we established. Ms. Harrington's work is not in question, Director Kim interjects. Ms. Harrington's relationship with our CEO, however, raises legitimate concerns about judgment and appropriateness. Min-jae feels the familiar constriction in his chest. The boardroom politics he's navigated since childhood, now focused on the most genuine connection he's experienced in years. My personal relationships are not subject to board approval. Your personal relationships, Chairman Han says quietly, become corporate concerns when they appear in business publications, alongside questions about foreign influence and artistic judgment. The merger with Singapore Energy requires absolute confidence in our leadership stability. Are you suggesting that having coffee with a project consultant demonstrates unstable leadership? I'm suggesting that a widowed CEO who hasn't shown romantic interest in anyone for 5 years suddenly appearing in multiple photographs with an unknown foreign woman raises questions about decision-making processes. The words hit like physical blows. Min-jae realizes that his father and the board have been monitoring his personal life with the same attention they pay to quarterly earnings, viewing his emotional numbness not as grief, but as reassuring predictability. The climate installation represents exactly the kind of innovation Seoul needs, he says. trying to redirect the conversation toward professional ground. It will position Han Energy and Infrastructure as a leader in responsive urban design, generate significant positive publicity, and demonstrate our commitment to community enhancement. At what cost? Director Park asks. The budget allocation for this project could fund 3 conventional plaza renovations. The technology is unproven, the artistic vision is unconventional, and the timeline creates unnecessary risk. Unnecessary risk or unfamiliar risk? Min-jae challenges. For 30 years, this company has built the same structures in the same ways for the same clients. When did we become afraid of innovation? Chairman Han's expression sharpens. We became cautious when innovation threatened stability, when personal interests began influencing professional judgment. The accusation hangs in the air like smoke. Min-jae understands that this isn't really about the installation or the budget or even media attention. This is about control. About a son who spent 5 years following expectations and now shows signs of independent thought. Father, he says quietly, what exactly are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to consider whether this project serves the company's interests or your personal interests. I'm asking you to evaluate whether Ms. Harrington's influence on your decision-making is appropriate for someone in your position. And if I determine that it is appropriate, the silence that follows carries the weight of ultimatum. Around the table, board members study their hands or the ceiling, or anything except the tension between father and son playing out in corporate language. Then you'll proceed with full awareness that some decisions have consequences beyond individual preferences, Chairman Han says finally. The Singapore merger, your position as CEO, the family's reputation. All of these things require stability, predictability, and absolute confidence in your judgment. Min-jae leaves the meeting with his authority intact, but his freedom of action severely constrained. As the elevator descends toward ground level, he stares at his reflection in the polished steel doors and sees a man caught between the life he's built and the life he's beginning to want. His phone buzzes with a text from Solange. Installation testing complete. Would you like to see the final calibration before tomorrow's official opening? Instead of responding immediately, he directs his driver to the plaza where her work awaits final approval. But as they navigate Seoul's afternoon traffic, he wonders if he's about to make the biggest mistake of his life, or if the biggest mistake would be choosing safety over possibility once again. The plaza at sunset takes his breath away. Solange's installation responds to the city's evening transition with waves of warm gold and amber, creating patterns that flow and pulse like a living organism. Early arriving spectators for tomorrow's official opening walk through the responsive light, their faces filled with wonder and delight. It's extraordinary, he says, finding Solange making final adjustments to sensor arrays. It's everything I hoped it could be. She straightens, her face glowing with the satisfaction of seeing vision become reality. The biometric response is perfect, the weather integration works flawlessly, and the community reaction. She gestures toward families gathering to watch the light show, children laughing as their footsteps create ripples of color. This is why I do public art. Min-jae watches a grandmother teaching her grandson to step in rhythm with the light pulses, both of them laughing at the magic they're creating together. The installation isn't just decorating the plaza, it's transforming how people interact with the space and each other. Solange? There's something we need to discuss. Something in his tone makes her stop adjusting equipment and give him her full attention. Problems with tomorrow's opening? Problems with everything that comes after tomorrow's opening. He tells her about the board meeting, the pressure from his father, the implication that their relationship, personal or professional, represents a threat to corporate stability. He watches her face carefully, looking for signs of anger or disappointment, or the decision to protect herself by stepping away from complications she didn't ask for. Instead, she listens with the thoughtful attention he's come to associate with her approach to every challenge. "So your board thinks I'm a dangerous foreign influence," she says when he finishes. "And your father thinks you're making decisions with your heart instead of your head. Are they wrong? About which part? Whether I'm dangerous, whether I'm foreign, whether you're making decisions with your heart? Whether any of this is worth the risk it's creating?" Solange moves closer to him, close enough that the installation responds with warm pulses of rose and gold around their feet. In the gathering dusk, surrounded by her creation and the families enjoying its magic, she looks like she belongs exactly here, exactly now. "Minjae, I've spent my career creating beauty in places that didn't initially want it. I've learned that the most important art happens at the intersection of possibility and resistance." She touches his face gently, a gesture so tender it makes him forget about board meetings and family expectations. The question isn't whether this is risky. The question is whether the risk is worth what we might build together. And what might we build? Something that matters. Something that lasts. Something that honors the parts of ourselves we thought we'd lost. Around them, Soul prepares for night, with its usual symphony of ambition and survival. But in their circle of responsive light, two people choose possibility over safety, connection over isolation, and the dangerous hope that some storms clear the air instead of destroying everything in their path. Tomorrow, the installation officially opens to public celebration and media attention. Tomorrow, they'll discover whether Soul is ready for art that responds to human emotion, and whether they're ready for a relationship that responds to human need instead of social expectation. But tonight, they stand together in the glow of something beautiful they've created, and for the first time in 5 years, Minjae sleeps without medication because he's too happy to need artificial peace. The official opening of Soul's first climate-responsive light installation draws crowds that exceed every projection. Politicians, artists, business leaders, and curious families fill Gwanghwamun Plaza as morning sun gives way to the first full day of public interaction with Solange's creation. Minjae stands at the ceremonial podium, preparing to address the assembled crowd and media. Behind him, the installation pulses with gentle waves of blue and silver, responding to the collective anticipation of hundreds of people gathered in shared curiosity. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, his voice carrying easily across the plaza through strategically placed speakers. "Today, we inaugurate more than an art installation. We inaugurate a new relationship between Seoul and its citizens, between technology and humanity, between the spaces we live in and the emotions we carry through them." The crowd listens with respectful attention, but Minjae notices the real response happening beneath their feet. The installation reads the audience's collective mood, initial uncertainty, giving way to wonder as families begin to explore the responsive surfaces, children delighting in footsteps that create cascades of color. This project represents collaboration between Korean innovation and international artistry, he continues, making eye contact with Solange where she stands among the technical crew. It demonstrates that beauty transcends cultural boundaries, that meaningful art serves communities regardless of where its creator was born. The words carry deliberate weight, addressing recent media speculation while affirming his commitment to the project and its creator. In the VIP section, Chairman Han sits with an unreadable expression, surrounded by board members and government officials whose approval will determine the installation's long-term future. I invite you to experience what happens when public space responds to public emotion, when art becomes a conversation between individual feeling and community connection. The formal ceremony concludes, and the plaza fills with exploration. Minjae watches Seoul's citizens discover magic embedded in their everyday environment. Teenagers creating synchronized light patterns through coordinated movement. Business professionals pausing their morning commutes to step through rivers of responsive color. Elderly couples walking hand in hand through installations that pulse with warm amber. "They love it," Solange says, appearing beside him with the exhausted satisfaction of someone whose vision has successfully translated from imagination to reality. They love it now. The question is whether they'll still love it next month, next year. Spoken like someone who's learned not to trust good things to last. Min-jae watches a mother lifting her toddler to see light ripples spread from tiny footsteps, both of them laughing at the interactive magic. Maybe. Or spoken like someone who's learning to hope they will. Their quiet moment is interrupted by the arrival of Kim Min-jae from Seoul Broadcasting, accompanied by a film crew and the purposeful energy of journalists, sensing a story with broader implications than arts and culture. Mr. Han, Ms. Harrington, the reporter approaches with professional warmth that barely conceals harder questions. Congratulations on what appears to be a tremendous success. Could we get a few minutes for questions about the project and its unique international collaboration? Min-jae and Solange exchange glances. They've prepared for media attention, but the reporter's emphasis on unique and international suggests an angle that goes beyond celebrating successful public art. Of course, Min-jae replies with corporate diplomacy. We're proud of what Seoul has accomplished with this installation. Ms. Harrington. Kim Min-jae turns to her with calculated friendliness. This is your first major project in Asia. What drew you to Seoul specifically? Seoul is a city that understands innovation, Solange responds carefully. It's a place where traditional culture and cutting-edge technology coexist, where communities value both individual expression and collective harmony. It was the perfect environment for this kind of responsive installation. And your relationship with Han Energy and Infrastructure? How did this collaboration develop? The question carries undertones that make Min-jae tense. They're moving from professional territory into personal speculation, the kind of fishing expedition that can turn celebration into controversy. Ms. Harrington responded to an open call for proposals, he interjects. Her submission was selected based on artistic merit and technical innovation. Of course, though sources suggest the selection process was expedited, and that you took personal interest in this particular proposal from the beginning. Solange feels the familiar weight of having her professional accomplishments reduced to implications about personal relationships. The installation around them continues its beautiful response to community interaction, but the journalist's questions threaten to overshadow artistic achievement with gossip column speculation. Mr. Kim, she says with controlled politeness. Are you interested in discussing the technical innovations of climate-responsive art? Or are you more interested in who I might be having dinner with? I'm interested in transparency about decision-making processes that affect public resources and community spaces. Then I suggest you focus on the community's response to those decisions. Solange gestures toward the families, tourists, and Seoul residents exploring the installation with obvious delight. The art speaks for itself. But before Kim Min-jae can respond, they're interrupted by a commotion near the installation's central array. A technical malfunction causes the lights to strobe erratically, creating chaotic patterns that send several children into frightened tears and prompt concerned murmurs from the crowd. Solange immediately moves toward the control systems, her artistic persona giving way to technical expertise as she works to diagnose and correct the malfunction. Min-jae follows, less interested in the mechanics than in supporting her through what could become a public relations disaster. It's a feedback loop in the biometric sensors, she explains, fingers flying over diagnostic controls. Too many people in too small a space, overlapping electromagnetic readings causing system confusion. Can you fix it? I can stabilize it, but the system needs recalibration for crowd management. Give me 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes stretch like hours, while cameras record every moment of technical difficulty and crowd uncertainty. Min-jae realizes this is the difference between private art and public art. Every flaw becomes visible. Every imperfection becomes subject to public judgment. But then Solange's repairs take effect, and the installation transforms from chaotic strobing into something even more beautiful than before. The lights now respond not just to individual biometric data, but to collective emotional states, creating unified waves of color that flow across the plaza as hundreds of people move in unconscious synchronization. The crowd's response is immediate and overwhelming. Applause, cheers, and the kind of spontaneous celebration that happens when a community witnesses something genuinely magical. Families spread blankets for impromptu picnics in pools of warm light. Teenagers organize dance groups that create moving mandalas of color. Business professionals abandon their schedules to participate in something that transcends ordinary urban experience. Ms. Harrington, Kim Min-jae approaches again, but now his tone carries respect rather than skepticism. That was remarkable problem-solving under pressure. Could you explain how you adapted the system for crowd response? For the next 20 minutes, Solange discusses technical innovation with the fluency of someone who understands both artistic vision and engineering reality. The interview that began with personal speculation becomes a celebration of professional achievement, demonstrating exactly why her work was selected for this prominent public space. As the reporter and film crew move away, Min-jae and Solange find themselves standing together in the midst of Seoul's enthusiastic embrace of responsive public art. "We survived our first crisis," he says quietly. "Technical crisis. The personal ones are usually more complicated." "Are you expecting personal crises?" Solange looks around at the families enjoying her installation, at the teenagers creating collaborative light patterns, at the elderly couples walking through rivers of responsive color. All of this exists because a Korean CEO chose to trust an American artist's vision, because they chose to work together despite cultural differences and social complications. "I'm expecting that anything this beautiful attracts attention from people who prefer ugliness," she says. "But I'm also learning to trust that beauty has its own power to survive, even when that beauty makes people uncomfortable. Especially then." As afternoon becomes evening, the installation's response to changing light creates new patterns of interaction between technology and community. Seoul's citizens have claimed the space as their own, transforming it from art exhibition into living symbol of what's possible when innovation serves human connection rather than corporate profit. Min-jae watches Solange accept congratulations from city officials, field questions from engineering students, and explain the installation's community impact to social workers interested in therapeutic applications. She belongs here, in this intersection of art and technology and human need. But he also notices the photographers from gossip publications, the curious observers who seem more interested in documenting their personal interactions than celebrating public art achievement. Tomorrow's headlines will determine whether tonight's success translates into long-term support or short-term scandal. For now, though, Seoul embraces light that responds to emotion, art that serves community, and the possibility that some risks create exactly the beauty the world needs most. The headlines the next morning are brutal. Foreign artist's Seoul project, innovation or infiltration, and Han CEO's heart vs. head, personal relationships affecting business decisions. The photographs show Min-jae and Solange during yesterday's technical crisis, their faces close together as they work to solve the system malfunction. But the captions suggest intimacy rather than professional collaboration. Min-jae sits in his office at dawn, reading coverage that transforms yesterday's celebration into today's controversy. The installation's technical and artistic success gets buried beneath speculation about his judgment, her motives, and the appropriateness of international collaboration on projects using public resources. His phone rings with a call from Chairman Han. "The board is meeting in 1 hour. Your presence is required." The line goes dead without further explanation, but Min-jae understands the implications. Yesterday's triumph has become today's liability, and the family business he's spent his life serving now sees him as a threat to stability and reputation. Across the city, Solange faces her own morning of reckoning. Maya, her assistant, forwards a dozen news alerts with translations that make her stomach clench with familiar disappointment. "They're questioning everything," Maya says through video call from her hotel room. Your qualifications, your previous projects, your reasons for being in Seoul. One blogger is suggesting the installation was designed to collect biometric data for foreign surveillance purposes. Surveillance of what? How many teenagers can dance in synchronized patterns? Logic isn't the point. Suspicion is the point. And you know how this story goes. Successful project by woman of color gets reframed as evidence of questionable judgment by men in power. Solange stares out her hotel window at Seoul's morning skyline, at the city that embraced her installation 24 hours ago, and now questions her presence and purpose. The familiar weight of being scrutinized, reduced, evaluated for belonging rather than achievement. What do you want to do? Maya asks gently. We could be on a flight back to Detroit by tonight. Let them keep their installation and their politics. Run away after one negative news cycle. Protect yourself from what comes after the first negative news cycle. You've been through this before, Solange. You know how ugly it gets when people decide you don't belong. But before Solange can respond, her phone buzzes with a message from Min-jae. Whatever you're reading, whatever you're thinking, please wait to talk to me before making any decisions. Some things are worth fighting for. The message arrives with a photo from the installation. Families gathered around the responsive light arrays at sunrise. Children creating collaborative patterns while their parents watch with wonder. The artworks. The community has claimed it. Everything else is noise generated by people who prefer conflict to beauty. I'm not leaving, she tells Maya. At least not yet. Even if it costs you your reputation, your relationship with Min-jae, your future projects in Asia. Even then, because some battles are worth having, even if you're not sure you can win them. 2 hours later, Min-jae emerges from the board meeting with his position intact, but his freedom of action severely constrained. The Singapore Energy merger requires absolute stability in leadership, which means avoiding any further controversy around personal relationships or questionable artistic investments. The installation will remain as scheduled, he tells Secretary Park as they walk toward the elevators. But there will be no expansion of the program, no additional projects with international consultants, and no further media appearances discussing artistic vision or community impact. And Ms. Harrington? Ms. Harrington has completed her contractual obligations. Her professional relationship with Han Energy and Infrastructure is concluded. The words taste like ash in his mouth. 6 weeks of working together, of rediscovering what it means to care about something beyond profit margins and quarterly earnings. 6 weeks of thinking that maybe isolation wasn't his only option for survival. Personally, sir? Min-jae pauses before the elevator doors, considering the question that goes to the heart of everything he's been avoiding for 5 years. Personally, I don't know if I'm brave enough to find out. That evening, they meet at the installation itself, neutral ground that belongs to neither corporate boardrooms nor hotel conference rooms. The plaza glows with gentle waves of blue and gold, responding to the quiet presence of couples and families enjoying Seoul's new interactive art space. So, Solange says without preamble, we're officially professional colleagues with no ongoing working relationship. That's the corporate position, yes. And personally? Min-jae looks around at her installation, at the proof that beauty and innovation and community connection are possible when people choose courage over convenience. Personally, I've spent 5 years choosing safety over everything else. Safe relationships that required nothing. Safe projects that risked nothing. Safe emotions that felt like nothing. He moves closer to her, close enough that the installation responds with warm pulses of light around their feet. You make me want to choose differently. Even with board pressure, family disapproval, media speculation about your judgment and my motives. Especially because of those things. Because if I don't choose differently now, I'll spend the next 5 years exactly like the last 5, surviving instead of living. Solange studies his face in the glow of responsive light, looking for signs of doubt or calculation, or the careful distance he's maintained throughout their professional collaboration. Instead, she sees something that makes her step closer, close enough to touch his face with the gentleness she's been restraining for weeks. "Min-jae," she says softly, "I need you to understand something about me. I've spent my career building things that last, creating beauty that serves communities instead of just decorating them. But I've also learned that the most important art happens when we're brave enough to be vulnerable." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that what we've built together, this installation, this connection, this possibility, it's worth fighting for. Even if Seoul's business elite think I'm a dangerous foreign influence, even if your board questions your judgment, even if we don't know how this story ends. The installation pulses around them with warm gold and rose, as if responding to the emotional honesty crackling between them. In the distance, Seoul continues its endless dance of ambition and survival. But in their circle of responsive light, two people choose possibility over safety. "Are you asking me to risk everything?" Min-jae asks quietly. "I'm asking you to risk everything for something that might be worth everything." The next morning brings news that changes everything. Secretary Park enters Min-jae's office with an expression of barely controlled urgency, her usual composure cracked by the weight of information she carries. "Sejongnim, there's been a development about Ms. Harrington." Min-jae looks up from his morning coffee, noting the tension in Park's voice. "What kind of development?" "Immigration received an anonymous tip suggesting her visa status might be irregular. They're opening a formal investigation." The words hit like ice water. Min-jae sets down his cup with deliberate care, his mind racing through implications. Anonymous tip from whom? Unknown, but the timing suggests someone with inside knowledge of yesterday's board meeting. Min-jae understands immediately. This isn't about visa violations. This is about pressure, leverage, the corporate politics of elimination. Someone on the board has decided that if they can't control his personal choices, they'll remove them entirely. How long does she have? Immigration investigations can take months, but during that time, her work authorization is suspended. She can't take on new projects, can't earn income, essentially can't function professionally in Korea. The trap is elegant in its cruelty. No direct confrontation, no public scandal, just bureaucratic strangulation that forces Solange to leave Seoul quietly while maintaining plausible deniability for everyone involved. "Get me a meeting with Director Kim from the Immigration Office," Min-jae says. "Today." "Sir, direct intervention might appear. I don't care how it appears. I care about making sure an innocent woman isn't destroyed by corporate politics she never asked to be part of." Park nods and leaves to make arrangements, but Min-jae can see the concern in her expression. She's watched him navigate Seoul's business world for years, and she knows that some battles can't be won through conventional channels. Across the city, Solange receives her own unwelcome news. The immigration officer who arrives at her hotel is polite, professional, and absolutely devastating in his implications. "Ms. Harrington, we've received information suggesting irregularities in your visa application. Specifically, questions about the nature of your relationship with Han Energy and Infrastructure, and whether your work authorization covers the scope of your current activities." "Everything was approved through proper channels," Solange replies, maintaining her composure despite the growing certainty that she's being targeted. "I have all the documentation." "Of course. But we'll need to review those documents again, along with additional materials about your financial arrangements, your living situation, and your long-term intentions regarding residence in Korea." The officer leaves her with a stack of forms and the chilling understanding that someone powerful wants her gone. Not through violence or threats, but through the quiet suffocation of legal technicalities and bureaucratic delays. Maya finds her an hour later, staring at the paperwork with the expression of someone watching her world collapse in slow motion. "How bad is it?" Maya asks gently. Bad. They're questioning everything. My qualifications, my income sources, even whether staying at the hotel instead of renting an apartment suggests I'm not a legitimate business visitor. Can you fight it? With what resources? I'm a freelance artist with no legal team, no political connections, and no way to prove that this investigation isn't legitimate harassment. Solange moves to the window, looking out at the city that welcomed her art, while systematically dismantling her ability to remain. The installation still glows in the distance, a testament to what's possible when innovation serves community needs rather than corporate interests. Maybe it's time to go home, Maya says quietly. Home to what? To Detroit, where I'll spend months explaining why my soul project ended in scandal? To a market that will see this immigration investigation as evidence that I can't handle international work? The cruel mathematics of reputation are simple. Doubt spreads faster than achievement, and perception often matters more than truth. Her phone rings with a call from Min-jae. Where are you? He asks without preamble. We need to talk. About what? About how I'm being investigated for visa fraud? About how my continued presence in Seoul is becoming a liability for everyone I care about? About how we fight back? The simple declaration stops her cold. In her experience, powerful men usually distance themselves when scandal threatens, protecting their positions by sacrificing relationships that become inconvenient. Min-jae, you can't afford to be associated with this. Your board, your family, your company can all survive my personal choices better than I can survive losing you. The admission hangs in the air like a bridge across impossible distance. Through the phone, she can hear the resolution in his voice, the sound of a man who's made a decision that will define everything that follows. What are you saying? I'm saying that some things are more important than corporate approval. Some risks are worth taking, even when you can't guarantee the outcome. And if this destroys everything you've worked for, then I'll build something new, something better. Something that honors what we've created together instead of sacrificing it to fear. Solange closes her eyes, feeling the weight of possibilities and consequences balanced on the knife's edge of choice. Outside, Seoul prepares for another day of endless ambition. Unaware that 40 stories above the street, two people are deciding whether love is stronger than the systems designed to keep them apart. Where do you want to meet? She asks finally. The installation, at sunset. Let's make our choice where we first discovered what we were choosing between. The plaza at sunset transforms into a cathedral of light and motion. Families gather around Solange's installation as the day transitions to evening. Children laughing as their footsteps create cascades of color, while parents watch with wonder that transcends cultural boundaries and social expectations. Min-jae arrives first, standing at the edge of the responsive surface in his business suit, but with his tie loosened, his corporate armor slightly relaxed. When Solange approaches, carrying the same yellow umbrella from the night they met, he feels something shift in his chest. Not the familiar tightening of anxiety, but the expansion of hope. You came, she says simply. I'll always come. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They walk together into the center of the installation, where the lights respond to their presence with warm waves of gold and rose. Around them, Seoul's citizens continue their evening routines, but within their circle of responsive art, time feels suspended, sacred, private. I got a call from immigration, Solange says quietly. They want additional documentation, financial records, proof of my legitimate business interests in Korea. And what did you tell them? That I'll provide whatever they need. But Min-jae, we both know this isn't really about visa compliance. Someone wants me gone, and they're using bureaucracy as a weapon. Min-jae nods grimly. Director Kim from the board. I traced the complaint back through unofficial channels. He's been pressuring immigration to find irregularities in your status. So what do we do? Fight a legal battle I can't afford against opponents who make the rules. We make our own rules. The declaration surprises them both with its simplicity. Min-jae reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small velvet box, his hands steady, despite the magnitude of what he's about to propose. "This isn't how I planned this conversation," he says, opening the box to reveal a ring that catches the installation's light like captured starfire. "I had imagined romantic dinners and perfect words and all the traditional courtship rituals that prove a man is serious about his intentions." Solange stares at the ring, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Min-jae, what are you?" "I'm asking you to marry me. Really marry me. Not for contracts or convenience or corporate politics, but because I love you and I want to build a life together." The words echo across the plaza, honest and vulnerable, and absolutely terrifying in their implications. The installation around them pulses with brilliant gold, as if responding to the emotional honesty crackling between them. "You're proposing to solve my visa problems?" "I'm proposing because I can't imagine facing tomorrow without knowing you'll be here to share it." He steps closer, close enough that she can see the fear and hope warring in his eyes. The visa situation just makes the timing urgent instead of perfect. Solange looks at the ring, at the man offering it, at the installation they created together that proves beauty can emerge from the intersection of different worlds and perspectives. "Min-jae, are you sure? Marriage isn't just about immigration status. It's about promising to choose each other every day, even when that choice becomes difficult. Especially when that choice becomes difficult. Even when your board disapproves, when your family questions your judgment, when Seoul's social elite decide I'm not appropriate for someone in your position. Especially then." He takes her hands gently. "Solange, you taught me that some storms are necessary to clear the air. Let them disapprove. Let them question. Let them decide whatever they want. I'm choosing you, choosing us, choosing the possibility that love matters more than social expectations." Around them, families continue to explore the responsive light installation, their joy and wonder creating ripples of color that spread across the plaza like visual laughter. Children chase patterns only they can see, while parents hold hands and remember what it feels like to experience magic together. "What about your company? Your position as CEO? What about them? Han Energy and Infrastructure will survive my personal happiness. And if it doesn't, I'll build something new that deserves to survive." The ring catches the installation's glow, refracting light into tiny rainbows that dance across Solange's face. She thinks about the yellow umbrella, about coffee at 3 a.m., about the way he looked when he first smiled after 5 years of emotional numbness. "Are you sure you're ready for this? For marriage to someone who challenges everything you thought you knew about yourself?" "I'm sure I'm ready to stop being afraid of feeling everything." Solange closes her eyes, feeling the weight of decision balanced against the lightness of possibility. When she opens them, Min-jae is watching her with the patient intensity of someone who understands that love requires courage from both people involved. "Ask me again," she says quietly. "Solange Harrington, will you marry me? Will you take the risk of building something beautiful together, even when we can't see exactly what that something will become?" "Yes." The word emerges like sunrise, warm and certain and transformative. As Min-jae slides the ring onto her finger, the installation around them explodes with brilliant cascades of light, gold and rose and silver, and every color that exists between fear and joy. Families throughout the plaza stop to applaud, understanding instinctively that they're witnessing something profound. Children cheer, parents smile, and elderly couples nod with the wisdom of people who recognize true love when they see it. "When?" Solange asks, her voice bright with laughter and tears, and the dangerous hope of people who choose each other against all odds. "Tomorrow. Before immigration can create more obstacles, before the board can devise new strategies, before anyone else can decide that our love is less important than their politics. tomorrow feels impossibly soon. Tomorrow feels like it's already too late. As Seoul's skyline lights up around them, and the responsive installation pulses with the heartbeat of their shared decision, Min-jae and Solange stand together in the glow of something they've created. Not just art that responds to human emotion, but love that transforms everything it touches. The storm that brought them together has passed, leaving behind not destruction, but the foundation for something stronger than either of them could build alone. And in the distance, through the glass windows of corporate offices and family mansions, other people watch the installation's celebration lights and wonder what it might feel like to be brave enough to choose love over fear. Some loves teach us that storms and sunshine can coexist in the same sky, creating weather patterns that nourish rather than destroy. Subscribe for more stories about courage that transforms the world, because the best risks are the ones that lead to forever. Epilogue. Permanent sunshine. 1 year later, the installation has become Seoul's most beloved public space. Families plan evening outings around its responsive light shows, tourists included on must-see itineraries, and the technology has been adapted for public spaces in 12 other cities worldwide. But for Min-jae and Solange Han, the real transformation isn't measured in international acclaim or corporate success. It's measured in the quiet moments of a marriage built on genuine partnership rather than convenient contracts. Min-jae still suffers from occasional insomnia, but now he has someone to share the 3 a.m. hours with. Someone who brings coffee and conversation, and the kind of companionship that makes sleeplessness feel like a gift rather than a curse. Solange has established a Seoul office for her consulting practice, working on projects that blend Korean innovation with international perspectives on community-centered design. Chairman Han, to everyone's surprise, has become one of Solange's most enthusiastic supporters, funding a series of responsive art installations throughout Seoul, and frequently boasting to other executives about his daughter-in-law's revolutionary work. The board of Han Energy and Infrastructure discovered that Min-jae's leadership improved dramatically when he stopped trying to manage emotions he was afraid to feel. Secretary Park, now promoted to Vice President of International Development, has become something of a cultural liaison, helping international artists navigate Seoul's corporate landscape while ensuring that innovation serves community needs rather than just profit margins. On this particular evening, they stand together on the same terrace where they first met. Min-jae no longer seeking storms to feel something real, Solange no longer carrying a yellow umbrella, but wearing a wedding ring that catches light like captured starfire. "Do you ever regret it?" she asks, leaning against the railing as they watch the city pulse with evening energy below. "Which part? Marrying you? Choosing love over corporate convenience? Discovering that some risks create exactly the beauty the world needs most? All of it. The chaos, the headlines, the board meetings where your mother had to defend our relationship to shareholders who thought I was a dangerous foreign influence." Min-jae pulls her closer, his arms coming around her in the gesture of someone who's learned that security comes not from isolation, but from connection. "Never," he says firmly. "Not for a single moment. You taught me that emotional weather is like any other weather. It passes, but it also nourishes. The storms we survived together made us stronger, not weaker." Below them, the installation glows with gentle waves of blue and gold, responding to the evening crowd of families, couples, and individuals seeking beauty in the midst of Seoul's relentless pace. The art they created together has become a permanent part of the city's landscape, proof that innovation and tradition can coexist when they serve human connection rather than corporate control. "What's next?" Solange asks. "Another city? Another installation? Another impossible project that everyone says can't be done?" "Next," Min-jae says, turning her to face him in the same spot where she first appeared with her yellow umbrella and changed his understanding of what was possible. "We keep building things that matter, together, for as long as the weather holds. And if the weather changes, then we dance in whatever storm comes, knowing we have each other and the light we've created to guide us home." As if responding to their conversation, the installation below pulses with warm gold and rose, creating patterns that flow across the plaza like visual music. In the distance, Seoul continues its ancient dance of ambition and survival. But 47 floors above the street, two people have discovered that the best love stories aren't about choosing security over uncertainty. They're about choosing each other, every day, in whatever weather comes, and trusting that the light you create together is stronger than any storm you might face alone. The yellow umbrella hangs in their closet now, retired but not forgotten. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful things begin when strangers offer each other shelter from whatever rain happens to be falling. And that some storms, when shared with the right person, become the foundation for permanent sunshine.